Good morning, Year 12. Happy 23rd of April. It's St. George's Day and Shakespeare's birthday. So there is your literary facts for the day. Um, this is the first time I've attempted to do this. So if it all goes horribly wrong, I apologise entirely. Just email me to let me know that I'm a disaster and we'll sort something out. So this is a video just to kind of support you a little bit in terms of looking at your essay on suspense that you wrote. So first of all, you need to look at the question, and some of you essentially wrote me up a close analysis of the poem in general and weren't particularly focused on this idea of suspense. Hang on. Ooh, where's my pointer? Okay. So if you can see here that I'm highlighting this word suspense, what we need to think about is what are those connotations. So you don't necessarily need to talk about every single idea in the poem. You specifically want to think about that idea of suspense. And then here, you've got this idea of comparison to one or two other poems in the collection. And lots of you did that really well, particularly linking to things like I heard a fly buzz. So that was lovely. This bit here is an area where we could improve. So Dickinson's use of poetic and stylistic techniques. So lots of you were talking about word level analysis, you were looking at linguistic choices, you were looking at metaphors, similes, but some of your comments on poetic choices were kind of lacking. So I'm going to show you now what the exam board means. So this is from a mark scheme for a question on a narrow fellow in the grass. And as you can see here, the mark scheme is really, really specific. Okay, so this question was from the 2017 paper, and it's about the presentation of nature in A Narrow Fellow in the Grass and Other Poems. And you've got this explanation for a higher level response on the left. So using poetic and stylistic analysis effectively, using vocabulary and terminology effectively, expressing ideas fluently and coherently with wide vocabulary, making use of relevant literary or other context, I'm going to talk about context in a minute, to further the analysis and to develop an interpretation. Remember that context is only used here, that word further the analysis, okay? The important bit is the analysis. And make interesting and illuminating use of points of connection between the poems discussed, selecting significant stylistic and poetic features as part of an analysis. So you're wanting to link to other poems based on what they're doing and what techniques Dickinson is using. So these are on the right in bold, the headings that I've given you on the feedback sheet, which is going to accompany this video. So the first is voice and tone. And now this might be a nice way to structure your essay if you're struggling. I know that some of you emailed me and said that you didn't really know how to approach an essay. Here, they're really, really specific. So for a narrow fellow, you could talk about the first person descriptive narrative, the syntax and contents. Syntax, remember, means sentence or line structure. Ideas of contrast, the tone. So that's where you get your adjectives in, okay? In My Life Stood a Loaded Gun, you could talk about the very detached tone, which contrasts with the subject matter, which perhaps might create suspense. Form, structure, and graphology. Now, you should remember this from when we did the anthology. Graphology means how it looks on the page, okay? And here, this is where you want to talk about your hymn meter, the regular rhythm, where rhythm is established, where rhythms are broken, all of those things. Okay? Imagery and symbolism, this is where you're quite confident at the moment. You're talking about your similes, your metaphors, perhaps thinking about why they're being used. And then rhyme and rhythm is something that not many of you talked about, okay? So what words rhyme? Why? Remember all that work that we did about linking words together, okay? If Dickinson is making words rhyme, why is she choosing those particular words to end a line, or why is she choosing to to link those words together through rhyme. Even more stuff here. So, punctuation, we're kind of missing slightly the grammar and morphology. So morphology, again, is about verb tense. Some of you, I think, fudge me, your comment on prepositions or pre or post modifiers was really, really successful in terms of this. So you want to think about hyphens, dashes, this idea of tension perhaps created by unresolved sentences. And then in terms of context, your better ideas are to think about the context of Dickinson's poems rather than trying to match it to, for example, things about history or specific things about Dickinson's life. Okay? I know it's tempting. I know that everything that we've done kind of up until the end of year 11 has been thinking about specific bits of historical context and how we can see that in the text. But remember, language and literature is primarily about the text on the page, okay? Any little extra bits are just that, they're extra, okay? So let's have a look at the poem. When you look at this poem, you want to think about suspense. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is I'm not entirely sure where this idea of the gun is a woman came from. Remember that Dickinson and all poets can adopt voices, okay? They don't write as themselves all the time. So when you're looking at this poem, imagine it's a gun. My life had stood a loaded gun. She is, or the speaker, the persona of the poem is a gun. Sorry. So it starts with, my life had stood a loaded gun in corners till a day the owner passed, identified and carried me away. So immediately you can talk about the pace here, that it starts, thanks to those dashes, in this very slow kind of detached tone until that enjambment between day and owner passed, which makes it faster, perhaps brings this suspense. What is going to happen? That's the question we're asking. And now we roam in sovereign woods, and now we hunt the doe, and every time I speak for him, the mountain straight reply. Okay, so we've got that really regular rhythm here, which lulls us into this false sense of security until you can spot the strange non-rhyme between doe and reply. And that kind of unsettles us again, okay? So perhaps makes us feel suspense. Lots of you talked about this Vesuvian face, but what you could have said about it is this idea that there is an implied threat here. Upon the valley glow it is as a Vesuvian face, and do I smile such cordial light upon the valley glow? It is as a Vesuvian face had let its pleasure through. So there is that threat in that word there. And when at night our good day done, I guard my master's head, 'tis better than the eider duck's deep pillow to have shared. Lots of strange comments about the eider duck. Remember, that's just a feather pillow, mate. All right? Don't overcomplicate things. To foe of his I'm deadly foe, none stir the second time, on whom I lay a yellow eye or an emphatic thumb. So talk about tone here. What's the tone like? If you had to put an adjective to describe the voice of the poem in this fifth stanza, what would you say? Does that contribute to suspense? And then look at this ending, okay? There's that implication of death. Though I than he may longer live, he longer must than I, for I have the power to kill without the power to die. They're saying that although the gun is immortal because it's not alive, it loses its purpose when there isn't a person to control it. Okay? And there's suspense there in the tension between the two. Okay? Happy? Marvellous. So, here is a paragraph I prepared earlier. So, I'm going to edit some of this because I wrote it a while ago and I'm not entirely sure I like it. So I'm going to talk you through why I'm changing it. So throughout the poem, My Life is Still a Loaded Gun, Dickinson employs the extended metaphor of a gun, which is perhaps, you know how I like being tentative, perhaps in, symbolic of her own life. She repeatedly uses the lexis of violence, and this creates an atmosphere of suspense for her readers. Good, nice and clear. What could I do to improve? I could add some quotation. Sorry guys, I'm trying to drink huge amounts of tea while doing this. The opening line of the poem immediately creates a passive voice. My life had stood. Okay? And I remember some of you commenting on that. That's grammar and morphology. The verb stood creates a sense of stillness, or could even suggest the speaker's feeling of stagnation. However, this is quickly juxtaposed by the comparison to a loaded gun, and this paratatic line feels unexpected and disjointed. Paratatic is held back, like I heard a fly buzz when I died. Yeah? The speaker is surprised by this comparison, which creates an innate sense of suspense. Moreover, Dickinson's capitalisation of the possessive pronoun my and the noun life and then loaded gun emphasises unanticipated metaphor. Dickinson's lexical choices would have reminded her readers of the experiences of the American Civil War, which Dickinson herself lived through. This would have been a time of great fear and anxiety, and so feeds into an atmosphere of suspense. So here, when you do use context, that's the word I was looking for, you need to then link it back to your question. You need to link it back to purpose, okay? Why is that there? Because otherwise you're just kind of dropping in random bits of history that don't really make much sense. Okay? Notice here how my writing is being led by techniques. So Dickinson goes on to use the prepositional phrase in corners to describe what her life was once like, and this creates a sense of isolation, or could even suggest hiding from the world. However, by the final line of this opening quatrain, she admits that an unidentified owner has carried me away. This idiomatic expression creates suspense for the reader as we are left to question where she has been carried to. Okay? So what I really would like to see you do is to be driven by the text itself. Okay? You're very good at making kind of literature-based points about big ideas and key themes. And some of you are good at identifying techniques, but what's lacking here is the link between the two. So I'll just write a quick example for you. Let's say we'll talk about rhyme. So rhyme is used in the poem to exaggerate and highlight the unpredictability and therefore suspense which runs throughout. Yeah? Happy. Can't type. Very high pressure. For example, while embedded in a stanza which runs with predictable hymn meter, poem, let me just check on the poem. The poem suggests a full rhyme following Dickinson's characteristic A-B-A-C. Yes. Rhyme. But this is frustrated by the lack of rhyme between woods and him in stand 2. Okay? So, we've identified a method here. We've talked about rhyme. Now I want to make sure that I'm really clearly linking the method back to the effect. So, the frustration of the failed rhyme, and instead of failed, maybe I don't like that word failed. Let's change it. The frustration of the anticipated rhyme leaves the reader in suspense. There we go. Waiting for the completion of the poetic passage. Now, I am fully aware that I write in quite a fancy way. So, what I would like you guys to do is to focus on making your writing clear first and foremost. Now, I don't mean writing like you talk. I mean writing so it's really, really obvious what you mean, that all of your sentences are clear and accurate, and that everything that you say, everything that you write makes sense. Okay? So your task for today and until next week when I speak to you again is I would like you to have a go at rewriting this suspense essay. I'll upload this PowerPoint as well with the examples and this video so that you can have a look and think about what things that you could add. I've also annotated your essays. If you have got any questions about those, do drop me an email. Okay, you've all got my email address. So hopefully this is all clear. If it's not, just give me a shout. Look after yourselves, guys. Take care. Bye.